Here they come. My Virginia Avenue people. Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, it just.
May I?
You've got to think these systems. You can't.
Well, hello and welcome everyone to Phoenixville Library
No, you can't.
and the latest in our Community Gardening Around the Village series. Multi-partner sponsored series that we've been doing since the pandemic, actually. And we have with us tonight a return guest, Tony Buck, a citizen sustainability advocate, as he describes himself. He is a retired master gardener, permaculture designer, and maker. He lives an organic gardening lifestyle and cares deeply that the planet is in overshoot. Tonight, he'll introduce us to his neighborhood, a neighborhood that he himself created, but which could be a reality today. So, Tony, thanks so much for being with us and showing us around your place.
You're welcome. Well, thanks to the library, Phoenixville Library, for letting me come and do the talk, and for Jane for setting it up. And what's your gardening around the neighborhood? Is it?
Gardening Around the Village
The
is
village.
a series
Yes.
that the library does.
Well, this is a world premiere. I painted this in January, through the month of January. It's on two doors, and I hinged them so I could carry it. So I'm going to read for about 3 or 4 minutes because I've got this great introduction I can never do without reading it. So then we'll do. I'll run through all the features on the neighborhood, and we can put them on the screen so I can zoom in on them. And ask questions. You can ask questions throughout. Don't wait to the end. But don't grandstand, please. I've got a lot to get through. If you want to grandstand, speak to Mark. Get your own night. He'll give you a whole. Pick him up and you do your own night. Okay. So I always have to say that because there's always somebody who wants to. You know. So all the built environment features on this in this neighborhood. I observed when imagining a visit to a future sustainable neighborhood, pure imagination, but it's based on reality, and it's based on a lot of knowledge I have about sustainability. I'm an amateur sustainability advocate, but I'm really in deep, I can assure you. If you've read Navigating the Poly Crisis, you're in deep. Don't read that unless you have a very strong heart. So everything that although it's a future neighborhood, future sustainable neighborhood, all these things you can do today. And I love what the co-founder, Amory Lovins of the Rocky Mountain Institute, he said, we don't need any novel technology. We need smart design. And that's what we don't do. We don't design smartly. Okay? We're still living a kind of 19th century design. Many of the features require some capital outlay that will add to the value of your property. Some, like the conservatory sunrooms, like these, or this one, they can help you extend the growing season if you're a gardener. They can give you a lot of pleasure. It's like having an extra room in your house, and you can use them for all seasons. It's a great life enhancement. But then should the need arise, like if you don't want to garden right now, but if the need did arise that you have to grow some of your own food, all of a sudden the infrastructure is in place, ready for you. These basic needs enhancements help us to move towards a more sustainable household. Because at present, most people in the modern industrial countries are frankly sitting ducks when it comes to societal and supply chain disruptions. Did you notice at the beginning of the pandemic? I didn't even blink when that happened. I became aware of how fragile our modern construct is during the financial crash of 2008, 2009. Frankly, I was appalled that I was at the mercy of the greedy ghouls of Wall Street. That they could actually pull the rug out from under my life. Maybe some of you have forgotten what it was like back then. What was the stock market? 7,500 at one point. Can you believe that? Is it 40,000? And now, apart from the enemies within, there is, of course, climate change, an indefinite food crisis, whether you've been impacted or not. If you live in Africa and Putin's doing what he's doing in Ukraine, Africa, your wheat price has doubled to tripled. So there's an indefinite food crisis for the next 50 years, no question. That's simmering below the surface. Add up all the other world Earth system tipping points like biodiversity loss, the need to phase out fossil fuels, which we can't do, the need to increase renewable energy sources exponentially, the need to protect against extreme weather events. All that brings the social and supply chain disruptions from regional conflicts, which are getting worse all the time, the need to reduce consumerism, which we won't do. All this now known as the polycrisis. So I started thinking how to become at least somewhat more self-reliant. It's very hard to be self-sufficient. This is a good thing to remember. Listen to this point. Where you need no inputs from outside. Okay, it's very difficult. The reason is each one of us needs 6.5 acres just for food. Right? So I asked myself, could Chester County feed itself? Well, if you divide the population into the acreage, you get 0.8 of an acre per person. So we can't feed ourselves. So someone is feeding us from somewhere, right? It's very hard to be self-sufficient, but we can aim for a confident level of self-reliance. There are so many experts I listen to and respect who can run down the list of problems, but rarely does anyone suggest something concrete to do. I thought maybe I can contribute to that because I'm not siloed in the discipline, but I have accumulated many skills during my life. So one evening, I found myself imagining this. The ideas I'm sharing here were especially influenced by the book, Just Enough. Lessons in Living Green from Traditional Japan by Asby Brown. Also, Rob Hopkins, who's the co-founder of Transition, he's influenced me a lot. I'll also have to add, I completed a permaculture design certificate in 2011, and that helped me to see the world in a more completely connected way. So I have to thank David Holmgren and the late Bill Mollison because they founded permaculture. So Asbury Brown said in this book, Just Enough, and I quote, "Sustainable society will come because the alternative is no society at all. However," continuing the quote, "we have nearly lost the race against time. Our margin for avoiding unpleasantness has largely evaporated." And I agree with that. So the first agriculture was very labor intensive. When we were gatherer hunters, because we destroyed the environment, we had to do agriculture. If we had taken care of the environment like the Native Americans did, you don't have to do agriculture. Because they knew they were living in the pantry. They were living in their own pantry. They didn't trash it. So they could just walk out of their teepee or cave in the morning, and there were 200 edible plants in the neighborhood that they could eat. Imagine. That's why I say gatherer-hunter, not hunter-gatherer. You're not going to go chasing animals if the food is sitting there on the vine, right? So you might say, "Oh, I'd like some meat." Well, what? How about a duck? There's ducks there. You know, this place, America was so abundant. I mean, does anybody know what the keystones, I call it the keystone species, was in 1500 in America? What was the keystone animal species? Can anybody take a guess at that? You think, what's the wolf or something, or if we had elephants, you'd say something big. But actually, the keystone species, in my opinion, from what I've read, was the beaver. There were billions of beavers in America. And why the beaver? That twee little brandywine that runs through Coatesville was never there like that. It was spread out half a mile on either side. The beavers dammed every river, every stream in the country. Basically, this was a wetland. So the trees grew, the ducks came down, the fish were everywhere. It was just so abundant. But then what we did, I said the European sort of people from there, the Middle East got trashed 10,000 years ago, ecologically. So they had to do agriculture. So the first agriculture was labor intensive. The second, today's, is energy and machine intensive, very wasteful and toxic. The permaculture way of looking at things is design and information intensive. Take the time to study what you're doing, to think about it. So that's where I'm coming from. We can react to chaos in the future, which will come. or we can think about how to design our way into the future while we still have time and while there's still so much abundance to aid us. There was a mini rush from city to rural during the pandemic. People in my world, we've always said there'll be a rush to rural when trouble happens, because everybody will want to grow food and do stuff like that. But mainly driven by claustrophobia, though, that rush to rural, and, you know, wanting to have a swimming pool and things like that. So, but it wasn't sustainability, nothing to do with it. But with future disruption, not everyone can run to rural. We have to sustain in place, and that's what my neighborhood's all about. I've been doing some of this on my own. I got 1/10 of an acre in Coatesville with the house. And I eat more yet edible plants. I grow more edible plants than I can eat each year. I give them to neighbors. And they, in turn, give me their biomass, which we might call garden waste, which is leaves and grass clippings. And that becomes the regenerative element, of course, compost, for what's called next year's groceries, as my neighbor says. When he's bringing the leaves down to my house, somebody will shout out, "Oh, Joe, why are you doing that?" And he'll say, "Hey, you shut up, this is next year's groceries, mate." You know. He can't believe these leaves and these old apples and twigs turn into this compost. He almost cries when he picks it up. It's like, it's beautiful stuff, and me too. It's just gorgeous stuff. So I don't use commercial fertilizers on my land or anything like that. Now, the irony is we have to build the infrastructure needed to thrive, and that means a little bit more development in a time when we don't want it, really, to get where we need to be. And it does cost money. I don't have much surplus money, but I have lots of skills, so I can do it myself. So if you have money, you can get somebody to build some of this for you. If you don't, get reskilled. It's time. We need lots of reskilling. Will YouTube save us? Hopefully, if the internet stays up. It could save us. Greta Thunberg, she woke folks up, and we thank her for that, but it's time, along with protesting, to start designing, planning, and making. That's the next phase of the adventure to solve our present. This presentation is an attempt to alert us to the urgency and suggest some things we can do for ourselves and the neighborhood. This mural that I made in January is an attempt to share that with you and to show you what I've come up with. This is actually my street in Coatesville. The gardens don't look like that, the roofs don't look like that, but this is the buildings and this is what they look like. And my house is a combination of these two. You know, as I was drawing and painting, I had to innovate a little bit. So let's see, let's zoom into the neighborhood. So you can see that for close-up, we're going to use some of this. So the first thing we want to do, we want to get as much renewable energy as we can. So I said to people, ask questions as we go along, don't ask at the end, but don't hijack. We need renewable energy, which I think is the people's power, really. I mean, really, you know, we're putting these panels on our roof, not Pico, right? And they say, slow down. I know in media, the transition group got together and had a bulb buy in streets at a time, and Pico said, oh, ease up, we can't handle it. So you think, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. But actually, the grid's not designed for this reverse energy coming off the houses. So they have to upgrade. Of course, they've got no incentive to upgrade because we're generating our own power. But this has to happen. So renewable energy in my sustainable neighborhood is everywhere. Solar panels are the main ones. These are small windmills here, which I think are going to get better as we go on.
Small windows?
Windmills.
Oh, windmills.
Yeah, wind generators.
Oh.
We don't have them quite where we want them yet, but I think people are going to manage to develop them. So they'll be like 4 foot diameter, so they're not too big, they won't make too much noise. I think they're going to get more efficient. Somebody's going to come up with some magnets, and good way of doing that, you see. So that's the future. And the power is solar, of course, and of course a lot of the power is reduction. Don't create too much. So there'll be let's see, let's move on to this one. Oops. Oops, I got that. Okay. So, you know, photovoltaic, solar hydronic, which is hot water, which I actually built on my house. For 12 years, I built my own system. It worked great, but it only lasted 12 years. It actually got too hot. It kind of melted. So wind generation and wood stoves, of course, will still be burning wood mass. A lot of people have wood stoves in mind. This is the reason I say this is something you can do. Wood stove is something you can do. You can generate your own energy in winter. So if the grid goes down, if you have a wood stove as a backup, you can always get some wood, well, have some wood in the yard, cut down a tree, whatever, and you can still have heat if there's a problem. We're told the Russians can flatten our grid in a second. They can, and we can flatten theirs too. So if we start that, we'll all be doing it to each other. I forget, there was a journalist who wrote a book called Lights Out, and he said, the Russians are definitely in our grid. So
Definitely in what?
in the grid, the electric grid.
Oh, they're in the grid?
Yeah, they can hack it.
Oh, they can have
They can
it.
turn it
Oh,
off.
I see.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, there's another problem with that.
So
But
you mean have a wood stove in addition to your other heating?
yeah, if you, I mean, I've got a small one in the basement. It's unpacked. It's not packed. Yeah, it's unpacked. But there, I could install that in the morning
Oh, I see. You
if
just
I needed
have
it.
it on hand.
Just on hand. I also have a gas heater on the wall, which costs $200, which doesn't need a motor to run it. So if you have natural gas, you can turn that thing on. It doesn't need, it's even got a sparking kind of switch to make it light up. It needs no power at all. So I like to have something, if the power goes down in winter or summer, to help me with whatever I'm doing. So in the future, this has to go along with, we're behind on this. If you have renewable energy, we need to be able to store it because, as you know, solar is only in the daytime. So I imagine in the sustainable neighborhood that there will be battery storage on each corner, possibly in your house too, almost certainly in your house, but there could be community-sized batteries on the corner to catch that energy. That's part of the equation. We've got to catch up to that. We don't have it yet. So that's it. So, let's see. So it's getting hotter all the time. So in the sustainable neighborhood, we need to take care of cold in winter and hot in the summer. So in the future, houses with basements are going to be premium because you can escape to the basement winter or summer, but mainly summer. My friend in Coatesville tells me when he used to visit the grandparents, he's only 70 years old, so when he visited the grandparents in Coatesville, they would always have dinner in the basement in July. They would carry the food down the steps, they had a table with a carpet, chairs, and they would eat dinner in the basement, because that's the hottest time, you know, that heat's built up. But the basement's cooler, and I'll tell you why, well, it's up there, and they would put a fan on the table with a bowl of ice in front of the fan, and blow the cold air with the people. If it was a bad, you know, really bad summer. It's an amazing thing, below the frost line, which is 36 inches here, where we live, it's 47 degrees all over the world, below the frost line. That's why when you go into your basement, it's cooler, because below the frost line, that floor is giving you 47 degrees, winter and summer. It's an amazing thing. We can use that. We can use this phenomenon to our advantage if the grid goes down. So if the grid goes down and there's no air conditioning, go into your basement, make it a little bit comfortable. Mine's very ratty, but I could soon clean things out and sit down there. You know. But also you can sit down in winter too. You see, with a coat on and a sleeping bag, that's 47 on the ground. It could be 0 upstairs, you know. So this is an amazing phenomenon, which if we know about these things for the sustainable neighborhood, we can utilize them. So because of that, here's proof of it. This is a root cellar. This is in Coatesville. This house is 1850. It's part of the historic district. As you can see, the door is very close to the kitchen. There's the kitchen, right there. There's the door. Open this door, walk down these steps, and you're in this massive root cellar. in 1850, if that baby wasn't full of food by October, you might not get through the winter. Now, these are obviously wealthy people. They are the steel mill ancestors. They were wealthy, but you know, you would fill that thing with potatoes, winter squash, you know, the whole thing, carrots, and it will keep all winter. Now, that wasn't to freeze it, believe it or not. I've never seen this anywhere in the world but America. Now, I'm from England originally. We don't use them there. The reason we build these root cellars is to keep the food warm in winter. We don't want it to freeze. We don't want the spuds to freeze. We don't want the carrots to freeze. We don't want the cabbages to freeze because they'll go rotten. And it's too warm in our houses, so they'll age too quickly. But out here it's 47, perfect, almost a refrigerator. And that's because it's been 36 inches below the ground. But that keeps a constant 47. We don't want the food to freeze and we don't want to get it too warm.
Well, how about in your regular basement of the house?
In the regular basement, many of them have a utility, the furnace, so they're too warm.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you have a basement, like if this was a basement, well, actually this is a basement, but the frost line is there, so this floor is 47. If this was a basement, you could put a wall. What's that? Sorry, it's not me. You can put a wall up here and a wall here, and insulate this wall, and it will absorb that coolness from the floor and from the wall. You have a door, so you can have a root cellar in your basement, but you've got to insulate it from the heat of your house, right? So that's it. So that's proof of existence.
Tony, why
yeah.
just in this country?
I've never, well, in England, it's like 40 degrees all winter. And the sun comes out like July 3rd. You can't oversleep in July, you miss the summer. Yeah, so it's like, you know, everybody keeps stuff, it's like where you want to be really, in that sense. But here it gets very cold, you see, we're sub-zero. We can go to like 5 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So where are you going to store your food? Especially pre-industrial. Where are you going to store? You're going to store it at 47. So, yeah.
Do people still use root cellars to store their food?
Some people do.
I
So,
figured they did.
idiots like me, and people who have them. You know, I don't have a house like this, but you know, I'm like that far away from I could make one. Some people just dig a hole, and a deep hole, and put a garbage can in, and they put their food in there, and they cover it with straw. And that's a simple way to create a kind of root cellar. It's underground. But you want to be below the frost line, otherwise your food will freeze. Yeah. So you've seen, what are they called? When you have the little house over a spring house. Spring house, you see the one over us. So that's another way of looking after food. Well, the spring house is there to protect the spring so the animals don't poop in it and stuff like that. But in the old days, they had slate there, and the water's coming out of the ground at 47 degrees, and they used to keep their dairy on that slate, keep your food, some of your vegetables and so on, but that was for water. If you see one of these in your property, and it hasn't got brick, this is a brick ceiling, just bricks in an arch, fantastic. If you have a hole in your garden, and there's no square corners, it's all rounded, then it's probably Native American ceremonial hole in the ground. That's the difference between a root cellar. If you find something it's not really built like this, and it's not very high either, then it's probably Native American. It's just a leftover. Yeah, so again, this phenomena can help us in the sustainable neighborhood. It did in the past, and we may need it in the future. Moving right along. So we want to get rid of that heat that's keeping coming. So in the sustainable neighborhood, we have painted all of our flat roofs with aluminum paint or white paint, and that will keep it 5 degrees cooler on the second floor. Of course, if you've got some solar panels, that also helps it keep cooler. It's kind of a safari roof, we used to call that, because there'll be a gap between the solar panel and the roof, so the air can move in there and actually keep your roof a lot cooler. But if you don't have the panels, you need to get that white paint, or I've got aluminum paint in my garden, on my roof, one of my flat roofs, and that's going to help keep the place a lot cooler, which you want it to do. You can also, you can use dark colors to warm your house too. This is actually my house. So I painted the back blue. Black would be better, but it doesn't look so good. So the back's blue. In summer, in winter, the sun comes in here and heats up that wall. It is insulated, but it all helps. You know, it all helps. And also, I've got black blinds on the windows, aluminum black blinds, and you would be amazed how hot they get. You can't touch them. In the middle of a winter's day in Pennsylvania, you cannot touch those black aluminum blinds. They're pouring out so much heat into the bedroom. That's not a great deal, but you're capturing what's coming. You know, the heat's coming from the sun anyway. You might as well capture it instead of putting up curtains and blocking it out. In summer, you'd want to block it out, but the sun. I'll explain that in a minute. The sun's not in their way. So this is a little innovation of mine. The other thing we want to do, of course, is we need a federal program to help everyone insulate their homes. We really need that. What I call megawatts, no kilowatts, not megawatts, no watts. We don't want to generate any. We don't want to use them. If we have a federal program where everyone in the country could insulate their home, I think it's something like 50%, we could reduce the electrical needs of our homes, of our country. And guess what? We're going to need it. So everybody's going to get an electric car. We don't have enough electricity for everybody to get an electric car. And what if the grid goes down and you can't bring food from California? You know, electric trucks, well, can't run them. How many days can you go without food? Is it 3? I mean, let's be real about that. We're not going to get rid of fossil fuel. I want to, yes, we should do, but we're not going to. The whole world runs on fossil fuel. You just can't get rid of it overnight. It's impossible. You can't do it. And we're not going to convert this. This takes years for this to happen. And this renewable energy can't replace fossil fuel. 1 barrel of oil is 4.5 years of a human being's life work. In 1 barrel of oil, 4.5 years of your work. It's unbelievable the advantage we get from that. It's called the carbon pulse. It's gone. You know, by the end of the century, it's almost gone. All of it's gone. And we use fertilizer. Fertilizer comes from gas. All your pharmaceutical drugs comes from oil and gas. Big troubles when the oil's gone. But anyway, we need to insulate all our homes. We need help with that. They won't do it because then the utilities will say, no, they won't. We've got to keep our business model going, you know, and all the rest of it. There's a lot of enemies to the sustainable neighborhood. A lot of enemies. So, sun-penetrable structures in the sustainable neighborhood. They can be glass, polycarbonate. You can use them to extend the growing season into the winter or begin earlier in the spring. It's a lovely place to sit in summer, in winter. Now, this kind of see-through type, here it is on the mural. So it gets a bit too hot in Pennsylvania. That does. In Europe, they love that because that January 3rd day is wonderful to sit out there and catch the sun. But what you can do is you can grow grapes. You can grow vines up in there. You can have a whole structure so that whole thing covers in grapes in the summer so you don't get so hot. And then it dies back, of course, all the leaves come off in winter and you get the sun again. So this is a great thing to do. This is a really great, it adds value to your house. It does cost money, but it adds value to your house. But it's there if you ever needed to grow food. And I'm growing food all through the winter, every winter. For 10 years I've grown food right through. And we can be pretty self-sufficient in vegetables. You can't be self-sufficient in food. I mentioned earlier, you need 6.5 acres to feed you. So you're not going to do that. You can't do the cereals, you can't do that much protein. But you can be self-sufficient in vegetables, and actually you can be self-sufficient in fruit too, if you're organized. In 1944, this country, 40% of its vegetables came from gardens, the Victory Garden. 40%. That's phenomenal. So that structure is costs money. You can build one yourself. You can make it in plastic if plastic sheet if you couldn't do anything else. But there it is. Now here's something we have to know about. Did you know there are 2 easts and 2 wests? So the sun's path in summer, it's unbelievable how different it is. So here's my neighborhood. This is Chestnut Street. That's east, that's west, north, south. So here's the summer. The sun comes up north of east. I stand on my back porch, which is there, and I see the sun there. It has to be north of east. It comes up like this, and it sort of does a little bit of a parabola. But look where the arrow is. That's where it is. That's where the sun is, along my back. It goes like this, it goes like this. It's right above the house, and it sets north of west, over there. And that's a long drop, as you know, in summer. Like 5 till 8:30, you can't sit on your porch sometimes, it's too hot. That's a great time. That's what it does in summer. In winter, it comes up south of east. From there to there. It comes up like this, and guess what? It goes around like this, and it doesn't go up here like this. It comes around like this. It's unbelievable how low it is. And it's coming around like this, and look what it's doing. See, this is a sun port just like this one, right? So I'll show you that one. I think that's next up. Oh yes, sure. First, see that sun porch there? You think that would never get sun, because I just said in summer it's like this. It doesn't get sun in summer. But in winter, the sun is here. And it's banging straight in under that roof. And in fact, all these windows are getting sun. They're not getting sun in summer. My neighbor has awnings on all these. I said, that's ridiculous. The sun never comes in there. So he's put them up for 40 years. He's 92. I just talked him into not putting them up this year. In fact, it creates heat around the window because an awning always holds heat. It's terrible. Anyway, the sun comes in here in winter. It comes in all these windows. So you can have plants in these windows if you want. But here's plants growing under here because the sun is coming like this, and it goes down and it sets south of west. And so here we are. You can see it there. The sun is literally coming in like this. If you don't believe me, I will show you. This is my real life example. This is my porch. Here's my back porch. The sun is there in summer. The sun is there in winter. Every winter, coming into that porch. And that's kind of what I do on my back porch in winter. Just a few plants growing here. And see the blue line? See that? Winter sun. See that blue line? That's where the sun comes to. You need to know this in the sustainable neighborhood because you can use this. This is really useful stuff. So you can have all, I bring in, this is a rough year for me, they're not growing so much, but there you are, there's stuff growing through the winter. Not only that, this porch gets to 75 degrees by 10 a.m. Plus, the great thing about Pennsylvania is we're on the 40th parallel. The 40th parallel is Sicily.
Is what?
Sicily.
Sicily.
In Italy, southern Italy. 40th parallel. So in winter, we get this amazing sun. I got a friend, she's in Ireland, she'll phone me and say, is it sunny today? I say, yeah. She says, it's been grey here for 3 months, you know. But the colder it is here, the sunnier it is in Pennsylvania. But you can use that, you see. Fantastic solar gain. It's just unbelievable. And therefore, this porch goes to 75 plus in winter. And so, in the sustainable neighborhood, we put a thermostat and we put a vent, and that on the other end of that vent is a pipe going through the kitchen above the cabinets. You can't see it, and there's a hole in the wall in the living room, and it's sucking air from the porch all day long, every winter day. And there's the numbers you see. And so that's my little porch, and it's sucking air in, and the furnace doesn't come on for 6 hours because it's 75 plus coming from the porch for free. Once you've built it, you know, the payback. So we can use that. We can use this. We've got to use the sun. If you look at the old farmhouses in Chester County, you'll see they're all facing south. Today, we face the street. No matter which the street direction is, we don't take advantage of the sun at all. It's ludicrous. Because we've got this incredible carbon pulse, which is only going to last, you know, a few more decades, and then it's gone. That fossil fuel is finite. Can you imagine? Overnight, it'll be gone. Really, on the geological scale, it's that. And we burnt it all, you know. And it doesn't get renewed or anything.
Do you have an issue with humidity?
When?
During your growing season, I mean, does your porch get very humid? Are you seeing condensation? Do you have
That's winter. That was winter. There's no. I wish there was. I wish I did have trouble with humidity. There's no humidity in Pennsylvania in winter.
Okay.
I wish I could get some humidity, and I have to put humidifiers on in my house because I have forced air.
Okay.
No, I don't get any humidity in winter. In summer I would, but I'm not using this in summer.
Okay.
The sun's not in here. The sun's on the roof. So yeah, there's no humidity in the house there. So there's oil and gas and electric that we use, but we can grow our energy. We run on energy too, right? We don't run on gas and oil. Well, we do actually. Most people eat oil and they don't realize the whole world's eating oil because it's commercially agricide. Today's agriculture, I call it agricide, is fed by oil, you know, and gas fertilizer. It all comes from oil and gas. So anyway, you could grow your own energy, which is what you eat, and you can do a standalone. Here's that structure there. You see, it has to be. That is a north-facing garden, but if you put it at the back of the garden, the sun's going to come in and get that. There's another one. You want the sun to be able to get these guys. Over here, which is where I live, this is like a combination of my house here. I've got a south-facing garden, so the sun comes in really easy here to these structures. Here's another big greenhouse. So, standalone winter fruit growing structure, any size, take advantage of the sun's passage. You can have a nice glass one, you can have polycarbonate, you could just have pipes with plastic on, and you can grow food all winter. So you can take advantage of that. And in fact, I wasn't satisfied with my porch being large enough, so I built myself this little hoop house, which is 10 by 12. That's all it is, 10 feet by 12 feet. It's plastic pipe with some plastic sheet thrown over. Right? It took me 2 days to make that. There's a barrel, there's food, there's some kale growing in there. No extra light, no extra heat, because of this 40th parallel thing. So much, yeah.
I was wondering if you collect your rainwater, and I see the barrel, so I guess you do.
I absolutely do. We'll get to that in a minute. And the thing is that there's a thing called a catch a raindrop. There's a downspout here. I don't want to bring the downspout over here, so I bring a hose into there from the downspout and fill it up from there. I don't want to carry all that water. This is the inside of that 10 by 12 in the middle of winter. Look what's growing. Those gardeners among you, there's parsley, there's Swiss chard, there's all the bok choys and the Chinese vegetables. This is daikon radish. I don't like the radish, but I like the greens. This is winter grown. There's kale. How much can I eat? I actually, it's just me.
All winter?
All winter. This is midwinter. This is probably like December. And it keeps going, because I don't, those of you who don't know, I cut and come again. You don't cut the plant and take the whole thing in. You just take off what you need, and it keeps growing. It keeps growing, keeps growing. I've still got Swiss chard that I planted in September, right now. Big leaves. It's too hot in there now. It gets so hot in there now, you know, I can't even go in there. But yeah, there you are. No extra light, no extra heat. Say it gets, so if it doesn't go below, say it goes to say 20 degrees, right, which would be 12 Fahrenheit below freeze. There's a row cloth there, a piece of row cloth. I throw it over the plants. That puts you, so every time you do a covering, you're moving a zone sound. You know, we're 7A right now. We've just been rezoned, we're now 7A. When you throw the row cloth over, you go to 6A or 6B, one of those. And then when you've got the plastic, that takes you another zone sound. So that's really nice, you know. So you're sort of like in North Carolina by now, and you can grow these vegetables. So there you are. What else have I got coming up? So you can grow food anywhere in summer, of course, in beds, and there's a sort of representation. There's some espalier fruit growing. There's chickens growing in a cage. You can have a chicken cage. You can grow chickens. I don't. I'm a vegetarian for 44 years, but people do need to eat meat because they do. I don't know why. Anyway, food grows everywhere. Trees. Look at you can have fruit trees if you have some garden space. You've got raised beds. You've got chickens. You can do all this. So this is my cherry tree grows over my garage. So actually, I can climb on my garage and harvest all those cherries. They're starting to come in right now. I got 20 gallons of cherries last week. And I freeze those, of course, and I'm still eating them by September. So over here, you've got a chicken cage being used for blueberries, because you know who likes blueberries. Pretty much every creature that lives, because a garden is an equal opportunity harvest, and they all come. So use a chicken cage to grow blueberries or anything else if you have pressure from, I have pressure from squirrels, because it's the only productive garden in Coatesville. So they all make a pilgrimage every day to my garden, you know. And the neighbor feeds the birds all summer, which I tell her not to do. They don't need you to feed them all summer, but she does. And of course, she feeds the squirrels and bumps the population up. So I've had to build cages in my garden, just to protect myself from. So why is that part of a sustainable neighborhood? Well, you need food. One day I imagined, I'm an engineer type, I can make things, I can do all sorts of stuff. So imagine if the bridge went out. Say there was a massive earthquake, I mean massive. No energy, no roads, nothing. The guys in my street, we wouldn't get together and say, let's go and build a bridge. We'd be saying, what are we going to eat tonight? What are we going to drink tonight? So really, sustainability comes down to basic needs first. What are your basic needs? Food, shelter, and clothing. Right? Clothing is protection. Food, obviously, shelter is protection, summer and winter. But food is number one, really. And food includes water as well, of course. These are the things you need. If you have those, you can kind of kick back a bit, right? But it's nice to have all the other stuff, but that's number one. The sustainable neighborhood is going to keep you alive, and in temperature and with food and water, and hopefully get rid of your waste as well. But that's basics. Let's start there. Everything else is extra. I had a guru once, and he used to say, no one can say they're in poverty if they have food, shelter, and clothing. I don't care what you say. There's no poverty in this country. Everybody has food, shelter, and clothing. Almost everybody. Those who want to live on the street, a lot of them do that deliberately because they want to take drugs. All kinds of things. Food, shelter, and clothing. All this extra stuff. We've invented this. It's just nonsense. It's just, to me, it's an illusion, you know. We just went crazy with all this stuff. You're an animal. We are animals. We are only, I believe in God, and God gave the animals their food. And that's what he gave us. All the other stuff is just invention and craziness. All this is craziness. All of it is craziness. Food, shelter, and clothing is all the animals get. The squirrel gets up in the morning, he goes looking for his food, doesn't he? He reproduces, he has children, he feeds his children, he finds some shelter. He's got his own coat, he doesn't need to wear clothes. I think that's what we are, animals. We aren't guaranteed.
We aren't what?
We aren't guaranteed iPhones and cars and furniture and all this crap. It's just, please, don't get me started. So fruit trees, this is something we really can do. The great thing about fruit trees is they're perennial, which means if you plant them once, you don't have to plant them again. Every year they come up. Right? Most of you know what perennial means. Not everybody does. But so fruit trees, like wow, I've got a peach in my yard which is 50 years old. I didn't plant it, but the guy next door is 92. His uncle Tony planted it back in 1953 or something like that. It's been there forever. They're not supposed to live that long, but when I got there, I started pruning and taking care of some of these things. The cherry, the peach, they've been there forever. And they keep reproducing, and I get seeds from them, I get plants from them. Anyway, so, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. We do annual food, it takes time to grow, but once you do fruit, it just keeps coming. You've got to take care of it a little bit, not much. So really, we got to get with fruit. It's like unbelievable. So look at this. I wanted to share this. This is something I've only done in the last couple of years. A friend of mine was desperate because she had deer pressure, and the deer were eating everything. And I said, I just looked and looked, I went deep. I said, try to go deep, you can get it. You know, if you really think and think deeply and don't get satisfied until you hit it, the sustainability. I say, no, if you do that, then you need that. No, this is truly sustainable. So these chicken cages, which come in all sizes, this one's about 10 by 13, I think. My mate just put this in up in Boston to protect from squirrels. His beds, he doesn't have to worry about them digging everything up. And we can use them for blueberries, we can use them to protect us from animals. But here's the great thing. This is the cheapest way to do a hoop house. This is, you're gonna be doing this. You can get them 10 by 20 feet for $325. Okay. They're chicken wire. They take a little bit to build. You can build them in the morning, but you have that chicken wire is hard to work with, you know. But you just work at it. But here's the thing: put a little wood inside the structure at the ends, like this, and along the bottom, and you could staple plastic to the ends, right? And you could leave it in place. No need to take it off in the summer. And then in the winter, put a piece of wood on some plastic and throw it over the top to the other side and just weight it down. You've got a hoop house. So it's protection, and then you've got a hoop house. In the summer, it's, as I said, by April 15th, you can take that plastic off. Just unweight it, get a friend to help you, pull it off, roll it up. Back to protection. Everything's protected, it doesn't get so hot. You can use it all summer now. You can grow whatever you like. Your groundhogs, your squirrels, the birds aren't going to get whatever you're growing. Again, it's more food for you, it's energy for you. We're going to need it. We're going to need it. We've got so many tipping points in the advertisement for this show. We mentioned overshoot. There's so many things in overshoot in the world now that we caused. One of them has to go off, you know. This decade, before 2030, we've got to do so much before 2030, and we won't do any of it. We're actually incapable of stopping our voracious appetites and so on. We're just incapable. We're not going to do it. So we're going to need a complete, utter disaster to force us to change our ways. It's very serious. And then you've got these regional conflicts. I mean, the Middle East, that's a powder keg right now. You know, please don't go there. But we didn't even think of that 2 years ago. Well, the pandemic we didn't really think about. But that's going to happen again. Because that wasn't, although it was a health crisis, it was actually a food crisis. That came from a food crisis. Where did it happen? It happened, if we believe it, I believe the story, that it happened in China, in Wuhan. And in that market, you look around, there's cages with food from all over the world. I mean, food, animals that people want to eat from all over the world. That's a food crisis. That wild food market in China is billions and billions of dollars every year. It's not fringe. They're bringing civets from the Sahara in cages. They're bringing wombats from here. They're bringing pangolins from this place, right? It's ridiculous. It's all animal food for the Chinese. At one point, they got to feed 1.25 billion people every day. That's 4 billion meals every day. You know, that's why I say there's a food crisis. So the pandemic came from that pangolin in that market and spread to us. It's going to happen again because they're not going vegetarian. If they go vegetarian, they won't need so much everything. You know, they can manage it. It can be managed. We're going to have to go at least 50% vegetarian by 2030. We won't, again. So we're going to deforest the Amazon, and we're going to put all that, we're going to grow all that soybean and corn and feed it to those animals, which they don't eat, by the way. So then you're going to have to give them antibiotics because they're getting sick because they don't eat that food. And then your antibiotics are becoming reduced in power. And by about 2030, you might get a cut and die like our ancestors used to because the antibiotics don't work. So we've got a few tipping points around here, and that's why we need a sustainable neighborhood. Because if all hell's breaking loose somewhere else, if it's good on your block, if it's peaceful, and by the way, if would you like to live here?
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't we like to live here if all our neighbors were doing something like this? I call it collaborative abundance. Collaborative abundance. Imagine we're all talking to each other. Oh, tell them, how did you do that? Oh, I'll get one of those. Oh, but I don't want to do that. I want chickens. Okay. How did you do this? Oh, I did that. And then we learn from each other, right? I mean, that's community is also what we need in a sustainable need. The main thing you need when the proverbial hits the fan is you need people around you can trust, who know you, who can help each other, you know? That's the biggest thing missing in our country because of the individualism. You know, this is a neighborhood you want to live in because we're all talking about it and we're doing things and sharing ideas. So I pumped this thing up a bit bigger so you could see it. Yeah, just to show the whole concept of turning this into a hoop house very quickly. But also, it's a year-round thing. So, you know.
Where do you get those chicken houses?
Well, you know, you go online and you just Google chicken house, Amazon, whoever sells them, you know, and they vary in price, usually cheaper in the winter, but then you can pick your size, you know. The frame's easy to put up. The chicken wire is a little difficult to work with, but if you have a friend who's like handy like me or something, you can get them in to help you with it. They are all supplied in the kit, you know, it's all there. Very doable. There's a door there, look. And so you can build it, you can do anything. And
What's the yellow arch?
I'm just showing you that you can throw plastic over it.
Oh.
I'm just sort of throwing it over the top.
Oh, that's not a hoop itself.
No, that's not a
just
hoop. I'm just trying to show that, you know, you could have plastic there and all the way over. I was being lazy, I didn't draw the plastic in. So there you are, that's a close-up on that. So, maybe we even grow food on the roof in a sustainable neighborhood. There are thousands of acres in every city where you could grow food on the roof. Imagine, I think she did some calculations on Hamburg in Germany. She claimed there were 5 square kilometers of roof for growing food in Hamburg, Germany. All of a sudden, you've got 5 what do I say? Thank you. You got 5.
There's a few in New York City
You got a few flat roofs in New York City. If you did the
with great gardens.
you could probably have at least 100,000 acres in New York City on the roof. Imagine. So now you do have to check with an engineer before you put your garden. If you've got a roof, you've got to check. I'm a mechanical person. I do home improvement. You can't just go and stick soil on the roof. You've got to come in and make sure the beams are strong enough and the rafters and everything. But but the potential for it is huge, and it's out of the way. Nobody can see it. You know, it's private, and you can bring the water up there too. You can do all kinds of things. So yeah, growing on the roofs. So the point I'm doing with that is not everybody can rush to rural. We don't have the money. Rural can't take it. There's no infrastructure. You've got to sustain in place. So if you're in New York City and you've got your own flat row home, you can be, and your garden's messy or non-existent, you've got enough acreage on the roof. John Jeevons, who wrote Biointensive Gardening, he says you need about 215 square feet to feed one person all year with vegetables. 215 square feet. Well, most homes are about 900 roof on a row home. So you can feed 2 or 3 people from that roof. And if you're biointensive, maybe even more. So that's a thing to do. We're still talking about human energy, which is food. And there is no such thing as waste in nature. You may not have noticed, but we make waste. Nature does not make waste. Because everything that nature discards is organic and it gets reabsorbed into the soil and becomes next year's groceries. So we can do that too. We can take, I mean, just scraps of food from the kitchen turns into this. Unbelievable, right? It's just carbon and nitrogen mixture, compost, next year's grocery. This is my sieve I made because I got tired of going like this. So I put it in there and I just roll it and the compost comes through. So this is next year's soil, you know, and groceries. I always thought the oil crisis was going to be bad, and it is, of course, when we run out of oil. But soil is more important than oil. And we're going to have a soil crisis in about 25 years because it's all getting washed into the ocean or poisoning it with all these chemicals, pesticides, insecticides, the agricultural system that we're using. Soil will be premium as we go forward. It's always premium. None of us would be here tonight without soil. You know, soil doesn't need us, we need soil, right? So, and also, keep it out of the landfill. All this waste, so-called, goes into the landfill. It creates methane in the landfill. 40%, I think it is, of landfill is garden waste and biomass. 40%. It's all turning into methane and giving off gases. And it's clogging up there. And we shouldn't be doing that. We should be recycling it back into the soil. It takes nature 800 years to make an inch of soil. Because soil breaks down from rocks from the mountains, it takes 800 years. We cannot afford to lose any more soil. So with that in mind, we've got something we call hugelkultur in permaculture. It's a German word. It means mound growing, actually. But we've taken on this word hugelkultur because it's kind of cool, or something. It's German. So I cut my cherry tree, lots of logs, and hugelkultur is when you pile it all up and you get some nitrogen in there, which is green, or the grass, leaves, whatever. Lots of sticks. Don't throw it away. Don't put it out on the street. What we do is we put it in a bag, so the garbage takes it, right? And then we go to the store and we buy fertilizer. That's what we do in America, right? This is fertilizer. This is next year's groceries again. So this hugelkultur, don't throw it away. Find a place. Now, if you don't want to do a big mound somewhere, my property is so tiny I can't have too many mounds, otherwise I wouldn't have any space. So what I did was, I dug up one of my raised beds. I took all the topsoil out, put it on a tarp on the side, and these are all the sticks and branches I cut off of my cherry tree. I laid them in the ground, and then I started covering back the smaller sticks and the topsoil that I moved off, and kitchen waste and some grass, put it in the raised bed. So the raised bed is actually a hugel. It's a small hugel. And guess what?
Oh, wow.
That was the fall. This is July, the next year, less than a year later. You can plant anything on that hugel. Things like tomatoes and cucumbers, squash, they love it. You can't plant carrots because it's a root vegetable, you've got all those lumps in there. But it takes 2 or 3 years for that to break down, maybe longer. But look at these guys, they went crazy. They loved it, growing on the hugels. It's still there. Well, actually, I dug one up the other day after 4 years. And there were still some bones in the ground, it's big logs and stuff. The soil was unbelievable. It was so carbon rich. Now, the other thing about living a organic gardening lifestyle, which I do, right? I don't have a gym subscription. I don't need one, right? Because I'm always in the garden bending down, doing the work. You don't need a gym subscription, so you save money there. Well, I don't have time to do all this, but you do go to the gym, so you do have time. Well, I don't have time to do this. Why? Because, I don't. Well, according to ratings, everybody spends 4 hours a day on social media, somewhere or other. 4 hours a day. You can do this. We have time for this. It makes you healthy through the exercise. It gives you the most amazingly nutritious food, which you need. If you're eating more than 15% from the corporate processed food system, you're committing suicide on the installment plan. Okay? I just saw a study. That's why I've been saying that for years. People don't believe me. I just saw a study. If you're eating 10% ultra-processed food, you've raised your stroke potential by 9%. I just read that. It's the truth. 10% food from the corporate system, 9% potential with strokes. So, which way we go? Oh, so now we get to water, of course, which in the sustainable neighborhood, we have barrels. We have 1,000-gallon barrel. There it is, 1,000 gallons. They come off the downspouts. We have water tanks everywhere. We save the water. Here, if you look at this one, this is my back porch, actually. And the water comes down and it goes inside, into a container inside the porch.
And what about it inside?
A container,
Yeah.
20-gallon container. This is 1,000. This is a 20. Well, actually, that's a 30. That's drinking water. I've been drinking rainwater for 10 years, off my roof.
You filter it?
The water, it's a steel roof. This thing's a steel roof. I do filter it. I'll show you. I think I have a picture of that. I drink rainwater off the roof. My friend came around, she said, oh, you put sugar in my tea. I don't drink sugar. I said, there's no sugar in it. That's rainwater. It's sweet. Now, it's not perfect. There's no water perfect. If you're drinking from those plastic bottles, right, we've all got these plastics in our bodies. The only benefit might be that if the plastics can go to my joints, maybe it'll hurt to have my joints, you know. If I can get it, stick some kind of, give me some chemical that will make that plastic stick there. But then my knees will be great in my old age. Yeah. So you can even have rainwater tanks. Here we are on the mural. It's over here. We have water tanks up on the second floor here, taking water off the flat roof. If you get the water up high enough, you can use that water in your house. You can put it into the toilets, into the showers, into the washing machine. If I had 3 teenagers living in the house, that tank would be working on my house. I don't have that because we use about 12,000 gallons a year. Well, I got on the next slide. So one person uses about 12,000 gallons a year. Look at these numbers, unbelievable. We're the envy of many regions. We get, the average home roof is 1,500 square feet, 900 gallons in a 1-inch storm. We had half an inch yesterday, just in the afternoon. That means 450 gallons fell on my roof yesterday. I can't store it all. I can't store it all. It's fantastic for the garden. You don't have to filter it or anything. So that's 18 average water barrels is 900 gallons. You better have it outgoing in your water barrel because it's got to go somewhere because within 2 minutes it's filled up. In Pennsylvania, it's 44 inches annually. There's almost 40,000 gallons just on the roof of your house every year. If I had 3 teenagers, they'd be bathing in that. We'd be running the toilets through that. We virtually have no water bill because the water's getting very expensive, right? And yet here it is free every year in your garden. That's just on the roof, not to mention what's in your garden as well. So let's use it. Let's use and value renewable resources and services. That's a permaculture principle. Use and value renewable resources and services. That's free. It's coming to you every day. And it's on all these roofs. It's in the street. Of course, it's in your garden as well. The best place to store water is here, in the garden. So many downspouts go out to the street. They send it down the street, don't they? Bring it to your garden. Store it in the soil. And then when it's a drought for 6 or 10 weeks, 7 weeks in the summer sometime, my garden's green. And I'm not watering it because it's already there. There's so much water in the soil. If you could look at a cross section of my garden and my neighbours, it would be dry, and then you see this big wet thing, going down into the ground. And also, we're replenishing people's wells and the groundwater. It's good for everybody. Stop throwing the water down the street. Oh yeah, so here's my setup. So there's that pipe coming in. Here's my 30 gallon, and I put it into this jerry can. This jerry can was specially made for water like this. You could literally drink this off the metal roof. You don't have to filter it. But I do. There's 2 carbon filters in the jerry can, and there's a pump here. You can't move water through carbon. It doesn't want to go. So this guy invented this little pump. You pump it up, and the water comes out the spout. But it goes through a filter that long. It's perfectly clean. It's cleaner than what you're drinking in your bottles. So I fill the 5 gallons up. I bring it into the kitchen. It lasts me about a week. I take it out. I fill it up again. I bring it in. That's what I do. 10 years I've been doing that. And this jerry can, you can buy it online. And that's a really great way to to have clean water for free. And it's sweet, and the plants love it. My nephew in England is a forester. He took care of 2 greenhouses, and one year he did an experiment, municipal water in this one, rainwater in this one. This one produced 25% more plants, more fruit, more everything. They like, plants love rainwater. They don't like municipal water. So, we need to have fun in this sustainable neighborhood, right? We need to have some fun. So we can have ponds in gardens. There's a kind of representation of a pond that's up there on the hill. Ponds are great for biodiversity. You get bugs and things. You could even have some fish in there if you want for sustainability. For food, you could do that. But it's just a nice feature anyway. The children need to play. You can have all this stuff. So in a sustainable neighborhood, we need to have fun. We need to sustain ourselves, our own bodies through food and water. We need to protect ourselves with our buildings. We need to be able to keep our buildings warm, and then they're going to be harder to keep them cold in the future. We're getting hotter every year. There's no question. Just physics tells us we don't get rid of the heat. You know, it's just basic math. We're not going to get rid of it. It's going to increase. We're going to be more blessed here. This is a blessed area. I've been all over the world. I mean, this land here in eastern Pennsylvania is unbelievable for human habitation. It's a blessing. I've been places where people they shouldn't be living there. You know, a lot of people are living where they shouldn't. So there are going to be mass migrations across the world as those people. We're already seeing it on the border. A lot of those people are climate change on our southern border. Down in Nicaragua, the extreme weather is forcing people out. They lose the soil off the side of the hill. They can't grow anything. They're subsistence people. So, you know, expect some visitors. It's going to be, goodness knows what kind of turmoil we're going to get from that. And there's going to have to be livelihoods in the new sustainable. I hope there'll be sort of different kinds of neighborhoods. Community tool share, they already have that in some places. Maker spaces, there's 3 in Philadelphia. We don't have any out here, I don't think. We do a repair cafe 4 times a year in Phoenixville, where we repair things for free. We're going to have to repair things. These boots are 35 years old. I wore them into a DSW the other day to get a new pair of shoes, and this lady said, "Here, have this coupon. You can get 3 more pairs by Christmas or something." I said, "You see these? 35 years old. I bought them from your company 35 years ago." "You're kidding. Can I take a picture?" I said, "I'm not going to be buying 3 more pairs of shoes by Christmas. I buy 1 pair every 5." So, Janet's community-supported bakery. A good lady in Coatesville, she said, "I can't afford to start a bakery." I said, "You can. You find 100 people like me, will give you $300 at the beginning of the year. You've got all the money you need to buy all the equipment to start your bakery. You just have to give me a loaf a week for the next year." You can do that. And you've got all these customers coming in. So community supported anything. If you can find 100 people to finance you up front, you can do any business you want. So
Would
look,
you do that?
no. It takes more than wanting to, you know. Fabrics, we're going to be growing fabric. We used to grow fabric. We're going to be repairing things. There's going to be trouble with supply chains like we saw in the pandemic. At some point we'll be repairing our clothing. That would be something, wouldn't it? There's a fabric shed. We're in a fabric shed here. Down in Philadelphia, there's some ladies who started a fabric shed, and they have a whole initiative to regrow hemp for clothing, and also to make linen. Flax, thank you. So flax, we used to make lots of clothing from flax, and there's a demonstration out at one of the farms near here that they do that. So, so things are going to change like that. And this is my typical midwinter daily harvest. You know, Chinese cabbage, the daikon radish, and so on and so forth. So that's there's my YouTube channel. I'll be putting this up there. I've got lots of little videos on there. Before 2030 is my latest website, which tells you why we're gonna have to do this and why we won't, so you better get this done. Again, I got a sustainable website there. This is a great website. This is an amazing website.
This is what?
Amazing. Greatsimplification.com. So that's a few things there, and that's the end of my talk, and I'm really grateful for you all coming out tonight just to hear this.
So is this recorded?
Yeah. I expect
I have a question.
Mark will put it up on.
I noticed there's not too many street trees, and I know I participate here in Phoenixville in the urban forest, right, trying to add trees. Obviously, you mentioned fruit trees, but why don't you have any street trees?
You
Is
know
it just
what?
Oatesville happens to look like that?
It has no street trees. We have trees, big trees in our garden. This is, I would say, actually this is an immature future sustainable neighborhood. I didn't want to clog it up. In 10 years, this thing will be so abundant you need a machete to get through it. I think that's what our neighborhood's going to look like in the future, our own gardens. We have large trees like this in our gardens in Coatesville, but actually a lot of them are coming down. We have to take them down. It's like they all aged at the same time. The walnut next to me is 50 years old. The other one, the northern catalpa over there, I know is 40 years old, and it should come down. It's dangerous. So a lot of trees all come down at the same time. How these sycamores grow in a sidewalk, I have no idea, because the whole root system's covered in concrete. It's unbelievable. So I don't think we'll be planting trees in the public space, but let's put them in our gardens. And in a small garden, you can only have so much of a tree, you see. A big tree, the walnut next to me, he can't grow vegetables in his garden, not that he wants to, it's just a grass thing. But it's almost reaching over my yard, I don't want it there, things won't grow under a black walnut. So there's a limit to that, you know, I'm all for trees, obviously, I like them to be edible. So we can have edible forests, and some of you may have heard of that concept. The edible forest is a forest designed by us to be edible. So every layer is edible. So the big trees, the walnuts, the fruit trees and so on are edible. Then the lower down is the soft fruit on the ground. In the middle, you have your annuals. You have vines growing up the tree. So everything is designed to be edible. That's called an edible forest. That's where we need to go, really. And a lot of that is perennial.
Agroforestry, right?
Agroforestry is doing agriculture with tree lines and all sorts of variations on that. We need to do that. But this is actually a very immature future sustainable neighborhood, because, as I say, if I did it the way I want it, you couldn't even look in these gardens. It'd be so full of stuff, right? And it would be so bountiful. And the flowers and the bees and the birds, it would be unbelievable. And so that's where we could go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You said you're a vegetarian. Do you get most of your protein from the leafy green vegetables that you grow?
No. I use pea protein.
Okay.
Pea protein, liquid, 25 grams in the morning, and then eating tofu and beans and stuff throughout the day, I get my other 25 grams. You only need 50 grams. But
That's all you need a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do boost it in the morning. I have a protein powder, which I buy from Kimberton Whole Foods. You could use soy powder. I'm not concerned which one it is, but I like pea protein. Yeah.
This seems like it would work pretty well for a pretty low density area, such as a neighborhood, but I'm wondering for like a higher density, more urban environment, how you would modify these ideas, and like what would be a goal? Obviously, you couldn't have New York City fully feed itself within New York City. What's like a...
Well, that's good. You got to go to the roof.
Yeah,
In New York City.
but if you have like 1,000 people in an apartment building, for instance, you know.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, what's like a...
Then I would say the people in that building should get together and find a local farmer and have a relationship with a local farmer and make sure you pay him up front for food. So that, like a CSA. And if you don't know one, maybe you could start one, or somebody could start one. You could say the demand is here. This apartment buildings 1,000 people, we want food. Then find yourself a local farm. We've got to relocalize the food system. Our food's coming from mainly 1,500 miles away and further, California and so on.
Asia.
Asia,
South
Chile.
America,
Yeah,
Central
remember
America.
the movement where they're buying up unused corporate spaces, buildings that were, you just don't go there anymore? They are now growing these vertical gardens in them with lights and, you know, converting them in the middle of cities. I think Cleveland was a huge one.
There could be, you could almost imagine like a floor of a city, like
Yeah.
a skyscraper that could have like that western, or winter
Sun,
sun coming in and having like several floors dedicated to like indoor growing as well.
Well, Singapore and places like that, they're doing that, they're building
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
We can do it, it's again, it's
If that's built
design,
into the plan, yeah.
it's design, build it in.
Yeah, and the exterior, putting the plants on the exterior does so many things, you know, cools it as well as, you know, you can grow leafy things.
Yeah.
But the very
Fruits and
dense,
berries.
yeah, the very dense urban areas are gonna be a problem. They really are.
China is doing it a lot. We don't hear
Yeah.
about it, but China is, they will, in 50 years, they'll be really, really green.
They have to, because they got 1.2 billion people. The trouble is, they're so fixated on that pig, that they've done a 26-story pig farm in China. There's plenty of them. There's 26-story high, there's 600,000 pigs in a building. They're all identical. They're all on concrete floors. They have to wash them down. They bring in 3 pounds of food per chick, so 1,800 or more pounds, million pounds, 1.8 million pounds of food a day, and how much poop goes out the other way. What are you gonna do with it?
Were they
It's
doing
crazy.
biofuels?
Why aren't they,
Are they doing biofuel with the waste?
no, I don't know what they're doing. How do you-
Oh, no, they're
Yeah,
floating
they're
it in
doing green
balloons
stuff
over to
all
South
over.
Korea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's accurate. There's so much,
Yeah.
it's so much poop to deal with. So you have to have an infrastructure for that. You've got to truck it, you've got to move it. It's ludicrous. If they put that into soybeans, that's protein. There's the waste can be organic, it can revitalize, it can feed people. You're not, the pandemic possibility of 26 stories full of pigs, identical the same. One of them gets sick, all the pigs get sick, and the people who work there, and then we get it 3 weeks later in New York. That's what happened last time. So it's like we've got to get off to some of this animal food. We've got to really got to go to a vegetarian diet. We have to, and this is not a conspiracy. You just have to go there, and it will be good for you and good for the planet. It's like all these things are good for. And whatever's good for you is good for the planet. Whatever's good for the planet is good for you, because you are the planet in the end. You know, we are nature in the end, right? So let's finish on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.